So now what I'd like to do is introduce you to your presenter, Amy Livingstone, GM, Contact Center Solutions and Strategy for Nuance. Amy drives the go-to-market strategy and product management for the enterprise division's on-premise portfolio of products, services, and solutions. With close to 20 years of experience in customer experience and intelligent self-service solutions, Amy brings strategic and tactical insights to organizations wishing to deliver a better experience to their customers, aided by innovative technologies and design. So it's my pleasure to turn this event over to Amy.
Thank you so much, Sherry, and I'm really happy to be speaking with you today about a topic that I find myself discussing with customers and partners on a daily basis. And I'm talking to you with the experience of my role, but really as someone who's just working with IVRs on a regular basis and talking to a lot of different customers around the world about what they're experiencing and what they're trying to accomplish. And what we hear a lot more from our customers every day is, how do I get more from my IVR? How do I make the self-service options in the voice channel more compelling for both customers and for my own organization? How do I bridge the gap between web and mobile self-service and the traditional services that I'm offering by phone? I hear people asking, what am I missing? Has anything actually changed in terms of best practices that I should be aware of? Or are we really just talking about the same solutions that a variety of vendors have been trying to sell for years, marketed in another way? So I'm expecting that if you're participating today, these are some of the same questions that you're asking and talking about within your organization and with many partners with whom you're working. And hopefully this conversation will provide some answers. And I'd also like to hear some of your questions, and I'm sure you have many insights as well from your experience, so I'll try to keep my comments relatively brief so we can hear from you as well. But as you can see, before we get to that, I'd like to get some upfront feedback from you about where your focus and your priorities are today. In the polling section, you can see over to the right-hand side of your screen a list of the most common areas that drive investment by contact center executives and IVR business owners. And we see that a number of you have already answered, and I think I probably advanced that and we ran out of time. Imagine that most of these are appealing to you: lowering contact center costs, better operational efficiency, increased customer satisfaction, improving your brand and how you're projecting yourself to your customers, and gaining better insight to caller behavior. So I see that we have responses here with just 13%. I realize that many of you didn't get a chance to respond, but the spread shows that there is the most focus on increased customer satisfaction. And interestingly, that's also the most common theme when we speak with executives about their interest. It's in customer experience. It's in making sure that there's customer satisfaction and branding. Actually, as we move forward and engage in projects and talk with customers about the projects that they are engaging in, whether it's with us or with many others, action is typically tied to a number that's associated with either operational efficiency or cost reduction. So interesting to get these points from you. The good news is what we're talking about today has opportunity to address each of these different areas of value, and will just be something that companies implement in a way that helps meet each of these goals. So we're going to talk about modernizing the IVR. And when we do, there are usually a couple of broad categories of requirements that companies are thinking about. The first are practical pressures, which seem to be rampant with customers who've had an IVR for some time. They're dealing with aging telephony infrastructure and IVR platforms. A lot of our customers and companies that we work with have end-of-life dates looming or other challenges that require them to review a go-forward strategy and decide how are we going to, we're kind of being compelled to make a change. What should we do? And we have a lot of companies we work with who have old IVR systems. They've been in place for quite some time. They've been modified over and over. Often there hasn't been as thorough testing as would be ideal. They've got complex and buggy code that's compiled over time. It's using up more than their fair share of operational resources. And then we have some older IVR applications, whether they're speech-enabled or DTMF, with outdated user interfaces. They've plateaued in containment, or the performance has maybe even started to slide over time because functionality and experience just aren't keeping up with consumer expectations and changing consumer trends. And as the quote here from Frost & Sullivan mentions, that really your customer service is only as good as the worst performing channel, and with a channel as critical as voice, you need to ensure that it is in the best shape that it can be. And in fact, consumer expectations certainly have evolved. I'm sure that each of you have experienced that within your own businesses. They've changed immensely since a lot of earlier IVRs certainly were implemented, and that evolution has accelerated over the past few years. We're seeing a number of trends. A couple of that I'll highlight here include an increased demand for self-service. This is easy for me to understand because I have teenage and young adult children who have very little patience for relying on live human beings to get what they need accomplished. They like live humans for social reasons, and even then sometimes it's through devices that they're communicating with them. But really we have generations of people who want to do it themselves, who need the convenience to be able to just take care of business where and when they want. And we're seeing it used to be that automation is something that we put in place in order to address cost issues in an organization. And while that's still the case, more and more often companies are looking for ways to provide self-service to meet consumer demand. And then the other trend that I'll highlight here is that we have become accustomed to interacting with both organizations and with devices, with the world around us in a different way. We do that in a conversational way. We expect there to be service immediate and that it is on our own terms and that we're dictating the way that we can make things happen, that we're not having to fit ourselves into very rigid technology constructs quite as often. And so while there's a lot of buzz and investment across all sorts of digital channels, and necessarily so, and volumes are growing across web and mobile, everyone's acknowledging that phone is still a primary channel. If you look at Forrester's top 15 customer service trends, you'll see across all demographics, voice is still one of the most popular customer service channels used. Another study confirms that adoption of various digital channels is on the rise, but it highlights that a majority still prefer the phone. That's more than web, social, mobile, and text combined. And so what we're hearing from our customers is that phone isn't necessarily being replaced by other channels. It's being augmented by other channels, and it is being changed by what's happening in those other channels. And I expect that that's something that you're experiencing as well, that the mix of calls coming into your IVR is different today because the path that your customers are taking as they work with you as an organization and end up in your phone system is different than it used to be. They have a lot of other options, and typically when they get to either a live agent or even phone-based self-service, they've done a number of other things beforehand. They've tried to help themselves through other channels. They started on web, where they've been speaking to others through social media. They've done chat in some cases. They've done text. It's interesting. We work with a number of companies in China. One of the ways that in China, the way they talk to their bank is through text messaging, and then the bank client responds back to them. So we see these kinds of trends, and although we're not seeing call volumes declining, and across the board, that's exactly what we're seeing, that call volumes are not declining appreciably in any of our customer segments. We are seeing that mix has changed. The phone has become more of an escalation channel, and the types of things that need to be managed within the phone are different and perhaps more complex. So what does that mean for you and for your IVR? Obviously, it means that your approach to customer service in the voice channel and the IVR specifically needs to change as well to keep up. It means that if you want to retain similar levels of automation that you've been accustomed to in past years, you're going to need to automate more complex interactions because more simple inquiries are being covered in other ways. It means that the service you provide over the voice channel can't be siloed. Your callers are working with you across a multitude of touch points, and so integration with those is critical in terms of data integrity and consistency, contextual awareness, branding, etc. And it means that the user experience that you offer to your customers today needs to be updated to reflect the way people expect things to get done today. So that's simple, it's easy, it's conversational, it's intelligent. Know me, show me that you value my time and that you, with all the technology available today, understand who I am and are giving me the right options to move forward. So you and I are consumers, and we, no matter how closely we work with improving the IVR, we are also customers who interact with a variety of different IVRs. So you know very well, as I do, what's not working today. So Wakefield Research surveyed 1,000 consumers to find out, really they were asking what inspires loyalty, what, on the other hand, irritates and annoys in an IVR experience. And I don't think any of these will be surprises to you. Again, these are things that we experience ourselves. But these are the 8 complaints listed, and overwhelmingly, most traditional IVR experiences are guilty of some of these issues. And so unless we're actively working to improve the IVR experience, we're really automatically driving customers to agents and reinforcing beliefs that the IVR can't help solve problems in the way that individuals need it to. And this drives up contact center costs, and it ripples into customer retention. And as most of you indicated, or many of you indicated, that customer satisfaction was a key concern of yours. We know that there are real results and consequences for getting IVR wrong. We've got low self-service participation rates, high transfer rates, a lot of other system metrics that you can see as you monitor how your own systems are working. But of course, the consequences extend far beyond the IVR stats themselves. Another Wakefield study found that 78% of consumers will take action after any bad customer experience. They can do any number of the things that are listed on the slide, but all of these things are pretty severe. So making sure that the customer experience is effective is a really critical part of making sure that the business is successful. There's also a flip side to this, and that is that there's also significant opportunity associated with delivering an experience that does match today's consumer expectations. It's a significant competitive advantage. In the same Wakefield research study found that 88% of customers have taken positive action after a good customer experience. And so I think that's fantastic. Personally, I don't look to be wowed. I don't look to be delighted. I don't look to leave a phone call saying that was the most amazing IVR experience I've ever had. And frankly, that seldom happens. But I do feel very content and satisfied and happy about doing business when I have felt that it's easy, and I felt that it took only the time that it needed to, and when I was able to accomplish what was important to me. And fortunately, there is a much more powerful tool set available today, both in terms of technology, in terms of design, to enable self-service applications for the voice channel. And that means that consumers can actually expect more, and we have ways of meeting those expectations as companies in the market. So what are the keys to meeting those expectations? We've already touched on some of the challenges and some of the expectations. I like to characterize what we're shooting for that captures what consumers are looking for as the conversational IVR. So this is just a name that helps us to think about the characteristics of the experience that we're trying to deliver. And let me tell you what I mean. We define conversational IVR as being intelligent, proactive, and personal, allowing callers to quickly access the information that's important to them, perform complicated, more complex tasks and interactions, and do it in a way that feels like they're speaking to a live agent, which is a tall order. But you'll note that this definition of conversational IVR has real benefits for both the company in that it's an opportunity to, or an expectation that we'll be able to automate more complex transactions and interactions, offer more compelling self-service, but also to the customer. Participation increases because the experience is easy and natural and reliable. So I'd like to talk a little bit more specifically about characteristics of an advanced conversational IVR. And these really link directly to the expectations and the market trends and the really consumer trends that we talked about earlier. The first is that I want to know that as I engage with you, I am recognized, you know who I am, and that it is easy for me to get where I need to go to do business. And that first point of contact needs to allow me to do any of the things that I want to do. It's frustrating, and those of you who work with IVRs that have deep menus and complex trees of options, you know how often those that are buried or not at the very top or not the very first option, how often those actually get used, because consumers have really been trained to simply pick the first option or pick zero, talk to an agent. Instead, being able to simply express what you need to do, be understood, and again, be recognized, understand who I am and what my history is, and is really important. Second, providing an experience that feels like a conversation, that is allowing me to not guess what you hope I am going to say, not do my best to present the words that I hope you're expecting to hear and hope that those have matched up to what I really need, but to have a natural interaction, both in terms of what I'm able to express and then in terms of how the interaction continues in a natural conversational way that reflects how I would be talking to an agent. We know, because now we've had enough experiences to see where personalization makes a big difference. I can clearly distinguish between an experience talking to a company that has connected to information about who I am, what my preferences are, and what I've done with them before versus a very generic experience, which requires a lot more from me. So making sure that our offers, that our self-service solutions are personalized and that they're contextually aware, taking advantage of previous interactions and what I've done at other times. And as the last bullet says, especially what I've done across other channels. So if I've just been online looking at transactions and have spent some time reviewing my history there, it's a great idea to be able to answer me in an automated fashion and use that logic to determine that might be what I'm calling about. Finally, being proactive, anticipating what the customer needs, ties in a little bit with what I was just speaking about, looking at both history and looking at other events and activities, and using the analytics within our own organizations to understand how we can provide a more proactive approach to customer service. So I want to talk just a little bit about how IVR capabilities have evolved. I won't spend a lot of time here, but I think it's useful to consider it in this context, in this framework, that IVR has been around for a long time, and traditional IVR had all of the standard elements of a phone interaction, figuring out who's calling, usually a very generic greeting, using a variety of different mechanisms to identify or authenticate a caller, either through DTMF or sometimes directed dialogue using speech recognition, find out what they're calling about, and then send them either to a very simple application or more likely to a customer service representative. And at a lot of times, sending them to a customer service representative meant being transferred to a different customer service representative who had a different skill set. But not a lot of full containment in the automated system, a pretty bare bones and simple approach, which worked for some time. And then today's IVR, I think what we find more consistently, leverages new technologies like natural language understanding for call steering, more proactive notifications, so that we're combining both the inbound communications with the customer along with either proactive notifications that are separate from that call or integrated right into that call itself. And then slightly more sophisticated self-service options, and certainly the integration with the desktop, the CTI integration, the ability for an agent to understand what had happened up to that point. These, to me, are really table stakes and the baseline elements of IVR today, and they deliver significant improvement over most traditional approaches, but these are still the designs and capabilities that we feel can be improved upon, and we think that there are significant steps forward that will allow us to deliver very powerful, yet simple, almost unremarkable experiences to consumers. And I think the unremarkable nature from a customer's perspective is exactly what tells us that they're working. Examples of that include opportunities to not only provide dynamic information through an automated system, but to do that in a way that really sounds natural, that has advanced audio and takes advantage of more recent capabilities to seamlessly blend together recorded prompts or to seamlessly blend together prompts and automated synthetic speech, text-to-speech, but really can provide a very natural sounding experience that's not the same kind of jerky IVR design that we have been accustomed to in past generations. So many opportunities to include personalization, to include predictive logic, again, that takes into account the other things that a customer has done, their history, a record of how we've interacted in the past, and be able to hopefully take time out of the interaction and get them to where they need to go with minimum of request of them. We have additional tools in the toolkit today to provide a conversational IVR experience that include human-assisted recognition. So there are a couple of cases where human-assisted recognition is a fantastic tool. It can be used both in terms of speeding time to delivery of a new IVR application, which will allow agents in the background to pick up where a system hasn't been able to correctly understand what a caller has said, particularly in cases of either more complex issues or responses, or where there are a lot of alphanumeric content that's being gathered, and still provide to the customer a very seamless experience. It feels to me as the caller that I have just gone to a fully automated experience, but and it has been automated from the company's perspective as well, partially, but we've added this assistance of human recognition to fill in any gaps. And it's important that that's done in a way that is about feeding the data gained from that interaction back into the system to make the system smarter, a learning loop that allows that human recognition to be a temporary tool that's used to deliver that benefit, particularly for new IVRs. That's also a tool that can be used when there are more complex, for example, address collection or email capture, where there's sometimes a higher degree of error, and we don't want to go back and ask customers repeatedly to verify things. Another very important element is conversational dialogue. So instead of asking a caller for one thing at a time, which can lead to both frustration and lead to a very long call duration, designing a dialogue that feels like a more natural flow, that enables the caller to present the information that they need to request an interaction in a way that is natural and that they would with another agent. Another tool that I will comment on here, which has some great applications, is visual IVR. When we're talking about conversational IVR, and think about something visual as being part of that, because we tend to equate conversational with audio. But really, in terms of making this whole interaction easy and seamless and meeting the customer where they are on their terms, visual IVR can be very effective. So that's something that is used where information that a customer needs to evaluate or respond to is best delivered visually rather than over the phone. So leveraging what we know about callers and can identify that someone is called on a mobile phone, we can present the option to, while remaining in the call and supported by the IVR system, to have part of that interaction happen on the mobile device. So if it's something like reviewing a list of transactions and identifying which one you have a problem with, or if it's a matter of looking at airline seats and picking a seat, it's going to be a lot easier to look at a seat map than it is to try to imagine whether you want to sit in 22C or 31F. So as you can see, there's just a very rich suite of capabilities. They're a combination of technologies and design capabilities that have been repeated and honed and delivered in a variety of phone channel systems, maybe some of you have experienced, which can provide a much more advanced experience for callers and optimize that experience for the company, both providing that customer satisfaction, addressing cost challenges, and really ensuring that you have an innovative and effective brand and voice to the customer. The reality is now that there are so many tools available to provide this kind of experience that if you're not delivering the type of experience that's possible today, we're selling customers short, but we're also in jeopardy of falling more quickly behind others who are providing that kind of experience. And I think most of you have also probably experienced consumers don't compare. I don't compare my bank to another bank. I only really do business with my one bank. And what I do is compare the experience that I have when I call my bank to the experience that I have when I call my insurance company. And I compare that to the experience I have when I call for customer service on a purchase that I've made from a retail organization. And so as more of these tools are being used to improve experience across the board, they're going to be expected across industries as well. So maybe we can share an example and quickly listen to an example of what is possible when you put all this together. Now, to be clear, no one system will leverage all of the capabilities that I spoke about, and I didn't go into detail into any of the technologies, but the key is each enterprise or organization has different objectives, different supporting systems, different customer requirements. The key is understanding that regardless of what your particular situation and goals are, there are rich opportunities to provide an optimized experience, one that's familiar and consistent with the experience that your customers are having more broadly across your other interaction channels, and that you have a rich set of components to work with to do that. But let's just listen to what's possible when you put this together and what it might sound like.
ABC Company. Good morning, Amanda. I've matched your mobile number to your account and see that you were recently looking at your account transactions on the web. Are you calling for more information about these? Yes. Okay. Before we get started, I'd like to verify your identity for added security. Please say, my voice is my password. My voice is my password. Thanks. I see a few charges here. What's the date of the one you're looking for? It's from last Thursday. Quiet, Sparky. Thursday, last Thursday. All right. On November 12th, there was a charge of $18.35 for an overnight shipping fee for your last order. Did you have a question about this charge? Oh, that's right. Okay, I need to pay my bill. Sure, I can help you with that. You currently have a balance of $137.55. How much would you like to pay? All of it. Okay, and should I use your Visa card on file? Yep. All set. I've processed your payment of $137.55 using your Visa card ending in 4895. Should I send you a text confirmation? Yes, please. All right, I just sent it to your mobile phone. Now, is there anything else I can help you with? No, thanks. Thanks, Amanda, and have a great morning. Goodbye.
So that's just one example. That was obviously not a real call recording, but this was an example of what's possible. Woman had a question about a transaction. She decided to call customer service. She's proactively identified just using Annie and Venus. She received a personalized greeting. That greeting had contextually relevant information from her billing statement. And the company's IVR used both intelligence and natural language understanding to provide a really seamless experience. She quickly and securely authenticated through voice biometrics, and the conversation moved forward pretty seamlessly. There was a dog barking at one point, and with the help of agent-assisted automation in the background, she couldn't tell the difference, that there was perhaps a point at which the system wasn't able to recognize her. She was able to resolve her question, make the payment. It was a great customer service experience. Now, I know that was a demo, that was a recording, but there really are great systems out there, increasingly, more and more that you can experience yourself as well. I'm going to share with you some examples of customers who have implemented various elements of this conversational IVR toolkit and had fantastic results. Before I do that, I wanted to share a personal experience that I had. It's Christmas time, and I have a daughter who's away from home, and we decided to do a little advent calendar for her. So I went online and had a very specific list of things to find, and some of them were kind of unique. And I used eBay and grabbed a number of different items. And it's important for an advent calendar that all of your items arrive at the right time, because you can't opening something every day. And one of them didn't arrive. Now, I called eBay because I wanted to just figure out what's wrong with this. When is this going to get here? Am I going to be able to send this package out on time? Frankly, when I've conducted a number of different transactions, when I've had something that hasn't arrived, that feels to me like a problem that I'm going to need to speak with someone about. But I was surprised to go through the experience there, and was completely automated. I was able to very easily accomplish what I was trying to do. Got a confirmation on my mobile phone afterward. And it's just an example of the type of transaction which can be really effective for a customer, and which perhaps an organization hasn't thought about making available via self-service. But with all of the various tools available, from dialogue to predictive logic, etc., we're able to do much more than ever could in the past. So I will run through these very quickly. The first is FedEx. FedEx, very important to retain strong customer experience, customer satisfaction scores. They really wanted to increase self-service and automation as well. And so one of the challenges, again, of course, is that front door. So when you lose callers at the start of an interaction, you've not just had to utilize an agent to route them correctly, but they're no longer able to self-serve at all. So by putting together both a conversational initial prompt and introduction to their system, they were able to increase overall IVR self-service by 6%, reduce the number of agents who are required, and then make available a lot of other conversational transactional options deeper in the IVR because they still had these customers who had a great experience up to that point. Manulife is a great example in Canada. They, being a financial institution, needed to provide highly secure authentication for their banking customers, but they wanted to make it easy and pleasant to do phone banking and had a lot of feedback from their customers that the verification process was onerous and was difficult, and they were having problems with customers who were forgetting the passcodes that were set up, or it was just taking a long time. And so they put together a combination of natural language to allow people to speak clearly and naturally and get to the right place, and voice biometrics that allow callers to simply use a voice print to authenticate themselves, and we're able to dramatically improve the ability to get people to the right place the first time through the automated system and make that call much shorter and more pleasant and simpler for callers than it otherwise would have been. And they have that added bonus of being the first company in Canada to have this bilingual system that took advantage of these technologies, and it got them a lot of fantastic press coverage and has done a lot of good things for their brand. American Airlines is another great example, actually, of, first of all, using a fantastic focus on audio, making sure that the call experience is very natural, that it doesn't sound disjointed, but that it is like an agent is speaking. And the self-service system is also personalized and provides information to the caller that is very relevant based on what's happening with their specific situation, whether that's delayed flights or changes that have been made to their ticket reservations. And so what they have seen is great metrics in the traditional indicators that you look for in an IVR in terms of average handle time and call containment, but they've had a really strong response from callers and users as well, saying that this is a really easy to use system, that it was pleasant. They've got callers all the time who are speaking to the system like they would to another human being, which they originally found kind of funny that people were saying thank you and talking to the IVR like they would an agent, but now it's just become commonplace and expected. A great example is Michigan Office of Child Support. So clearly it's got a lot of people calling in, a lot of needs, and really important that they meet those needs in a timely way and get people who require financial support the money that they are owed and need to support their children. But they had a tremendous amount of backlog that they needed to reduce, and they had a lot of challenges with delays in assistance and people being transferred back and forth, a lot of phone tag. And they had a lot of cases in noncompliance, but a lot of them were around some of the operational efficiency issues that they had. So their real goal was to help clients get assistance and access to benefits without as much operation as they were interruption as they were seeing. So they introduced conversational components of their IVR in natural language within the interaction itself. They also focused very much on making sure that the caller intent was well understood at the start, so that they were getting people to the right place the first time, reduced misroutes, but you can see they reduced call volumes and agent escalations by enormous numbers because they simply became more efficient and more effective in finding out what customers were, what people were really calling about and trying to accomplish. So they have a lot of feedback about the positive impact in terms of customer satisfaction as well. Santander, Mexico, big bank. Santander is one of the top 5 financial companies in the world, and in this particular instance, we were working with them in Mexico. They had a big challenge that 65% of calls were failing to authenticate. So they didn't have a good way of validating, verifying who was calling, particularly not in a cost-effective way, and it had big impact on customer satisfaction scores. And it was really driving costs up as well. And so they rolled out voice biometrics, and just by welcoming callers with a very simple and easy way to securely tell the company who they were and send them to what they needed to do, they were able to decrease call handle time by agents dramatically. Many of these calls ended up with agents. We don't have to automate the entire call, but there are ways to make sure that the experience, both the automated portion and the handoff to the agent, are as conversational and as simple, as natural as possible, so that, again, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. So even though not the full call was automated, that portion that was very effective and efficient and provided a great experience and allowed them to have their agents focus on more complex issues that their system was not able to address. Finally, Delta Airlines is a great example. They had, again, customer frustration. They had an objective and a mandate to improve their customer satisfaction metrics. They needed to reduce transfers and misroutes, which were a big problem. They also really wanted to encourage more self-service, so get people feeling comfortable with and good about the automated system from the very start, so that they were continuing and participating in more of the self-service options that were made available. Another objective for Delta was to show innovation, drive competitiveness, really distinguish themselves from a pool of competitors. And so customer experience was critical to them to be able to do that. And so there were a number of different changes that they made that included both natural language elements within the system itself, but also connecting the outgoing proactive notification to their customers with the inbound IVR to improve containment. So when we're sending you a notification, is there a link? Can you call back in and immediately address that issue without going through a system like you're starting from scratch? They put together a very nice integration of outbound and inbound that added to their efficiency and really supported the story for their customers. So one of the things that I love about this story is that callers at the main menu level who are asking for an agent, which we know is a very typical caller response, has dropped 27 points because the system is taking care of their needs without them having to go talk to a live agent. These are just a few examples, and as I mentioned, not every IVR is going to adopt all of the tools available, but over time, there will be more and more progress made, more functionality offered to your customers, and a better experience delivered where consumers will start to expect that that's the kind of interaction that they will have with you. And as we have seen companies around the world and across a variety of verticals implementing these techniques and these technologies, we're seeing that they're delivering really fantastic results. They are certainly those operational results that we're looking for in terms of increased containment and automation rates and dollars saved and reductions in transfers and decreased handle time by agents. But we're also seeing very strong increases in net promoter scores and customer satisfaction, and in those more qualitative metrics that tell us that we're doing a good job with customers and providing the kind of experience that they expect. So there's a lot of information there, really covered at a high level. There are ways to move forward within your organization And the first is really to understand what's happening today. Know that your business is changing. Your callers' expectations are changing. Your product line may be changing all the time. So understanding why your customers are calling, where they really need help, and making sure that you have a system that can be dynamic enough to meet those needs is critical. At the same time, how am I doing today? Where am I strong, and where might I have room to make some improvement? Make sure that we're understanding, gather more information from a variety of partners about the recent advances that are available in IVR technology, because there are a lot of new capabilities that can enable cost-effectively much more innovative and easier interactions with customers. Be thinking particularly about how to link that with the other interactions that you're having across web and mobile, etc. And I think we've covered this today, but the idea that it seems to be working pretty well today is not a safe place to be. Understanding it's about partially staying ahead of competition as others around you innovate and deliver a next generation experience within the IVR. But it's also about the fact that your customers' expectations are changing and they're increasing, and that trend will continue. And so it's an area where we need to continue to invest and look at ways to stay ahead of, ideally, where consumers expect that you will be in order to not only meet great customer satisfaction scores, but that's the way we're going to encourage participation and really leverage the self-service that you are offering. Ways to get started. There are a number of different partners you can work with to benchmark your current IVR experience. Really take a close look, have someone look at each step of that process, or do it yourself if you have the right people internally. Understand how you're doing, and ideally, evaluate it both against others in a similar industry, against best practices across industries so that you know what your customers are expecting when they come to you. And then evaluate your IVR's current state relative to your other customer experience channels. Are you providing the same information, consistent? Is there communication between your channels? Is the brand consistent? Is the perspective of who you are as a company going to be the same regardless of what channel they contact you in? And where are there opportunities to improve that? Finally, create a roadmap, because this is not something that is bitten off all at once. There are going to be areas of low-hanging fruit for you based on your challenges and your unique opportunities, based on the gaps that are causing the most pain, and based on the strategic objectives of your organization. But make sure that you're looking at the things that consumers are most concerned about, and that you do have a roadmap so that step by step you're moving toward a more conversational IVR, and one that is going to deliver the results that your organization is looking for and that your customers expect. With that, I'm happy to answer a couple of questions or hear comments from you.
Thank you, Amy. And as a reminder, the recording for this webcast will be available in about 24 hours, and we will send that to you. Where you had signed in, where you were geographically sitting today, that's the same place you should put those Q&A questions, and we do have some that came in. And the first one we have, Amy, you've discussed many different things that we can do, but I can't implement these all right away. What do you think is the best ROI?
Well, I would say that, first of all, whoever that is, you're very right. You can't implement these all right away. And as a matter of fact, I would say that we went over a number of different things at a high level, and there's probably no one on this call who should implement all of them. It's not appropriate. What you should do is look at them as options in a toolkit, and it really comes down to where your biggest needs are, where your company is where are the biggest challenges? Is it that we have people who are dropping out of automation? And I guess if I were to make a general statement, the core of an effective IVR is ensuring that people participate in the IVR and that they are making it from the very start to the breadth of opportunity that you're providing them from a self-service perspective. And if we don't get the beginning right, then it's hard to feed them into more options. So both natural language at the start is where we see tremendous uptick in results for our customers, as well as authentication, where making sure that we know who the caller is an important part of the interaction. Making that quick and easy can have really strong results. So those are two areas where I just have seen a tremendous amount of results. But again, there are other companies who have done that. There are companies who have much more advanced IVR and who are now looking at, how do I offer more self-service solutions? How do I put self-service around something like stock trade, or finding the right seat and fare on this airline, or something that, again, you would typically have expected to interact with a person, but by putting the right dialogue, back and forth conversation, and some of the proactive logic that we can insert there, they're able to add that to their self-service portfolio with great results.
We have
a
bunch of questions coming in.
Go for it.
How secure is authentication by voice? For example, is it possible to use somebody else's voice to authenticate?
It is a very good question and a super common question, one that we hear all the time. It is very secure. So happy to go into more of a conversation about exactly how that works, and follow up and spend some time even at a high level sharing exactly how the technology works and how the trade-offs are made. There are trade-offs between security and how confident you are that it is the right person versus your tolerance for a false accept rate, I guess is the best way to say it. But really, we have banks across the world, financial institutions, who are some of the very most sensitive about security, authenticating callers, and making sure that exactly who should be accessing funds are the people who are. And voice biometrics is being adopted by almost every large financial institution now. So I think that kind of speaks to the security of the solution. The technology's come a long way over years, and there's a lot of confidence in that biometric.
Do you have any insight into the average duration until a customer attempts to zero out?
Well, the way that question's phrased, I'm not exactly sure in terms of seconds in a call, et cetera, but I do know that every turn in a menu, so every time there is a question, another layer in an initial menu, you will lose at least 3 to 5% more callers each time you go down a layer. So the more you can accomplish without sending them from menu to menu to menu, the better. And that's one of the reasons we see such great results when you add natural language, when you add dialogue, so you allow people to deliver and the system to capture multiple pieces of information at once, and then just get them where they need to go, because it doesn't expose them to those incremental opportunities to simply ask for an agent. But if that person would like to contact us, we can get some more specific information if that's helpful.
We deployed May I Help You? Is a conversational IVR approach another facet of NLU?
Another good question. So how may I help you? I think what you're referring to is that initial contact with the caller is one that asks them in natural language, understanding technology, what they need to do. So instead of providing a menu of options, you're simply saying, what can I do for you today, and letting the caller say what they need to do. That is absolutely a component of a conversational IVR system. That means that you've definitely done one piece of that IVR system in a way that would match what we're talking about here. So remember that initial interaction is one part of the call. And when we talk about conversational IVR, we're talking about how do we also address what happens next how do we make sure that the conversation is as smooth as can be throughout? Maybe it's sending them to an agent. Maybe it's gathering some information so that when you do hand off to an agent, the agent handle time is less, and you're getting better utilization, and you're not using agent time for types of things that automation can do. And maybe it's going as far as actually sending them to a very sophisticated self-service application where they're not going to an agent at all. So yes, if you've implemented how may I help you conversational natural language understanding at the start of your call flow, you're well on your way.
How do you encourage customers to use the self-service option when they may prefer to speak to an agent?
Well, I think that we've come a long way over in past years on this topic. One is that there are times that a customer will want to speak to an agent and need to speak to an agent. So what we don't want to do is take the approach of containment at all costs. That's going to lead to, big issues with customer satisfaction. So we want to be smart about what we're saying we can automate. But I think one of the things that is challenging is that if the consumer has an expectation based on their past experiences that they're not going to be able to get the information they want from you, even for those things which you have you can automate, then you have a perception and a branding issue that needs to be addressed. Sometimes that can be addressed as you move into a new IVR system, or you modify your existing IVR system to do things like add personalization. Add some of the predictive logic that helps them know that you are aware of who they are and that you've put a little bit more intelligence into where you're going to send them next. Those early indicators that your system is not just going to hand them a number of different menus that are going to be frustrating can encourage more adoption. But really, over time, the experience that a consumer has, getting those questions answered, getting to the right place, the right time, having calls that only take as long as they have to take, that's what's going to lead to increased adoption of self-service.
Thank you, Amy. And we only have less than 5 seconds left, so there's great questions coming in, questions we've never addressed before, really interesting, and it's just by time we can't get to them. I've sent out in chat a place where you can send those questions. It's Customer Experience Experts at nuance.com. And any of the questions that you have already put into the Q&A, we will make sure Amy gets those and she can get to you personally. So Amy, if you can in 30 seconds, you gave so much great information. What's the most important thing you'd like everyone to remember?
I think that it is that today's IVR needs to meet today's customers' expectations and their habits and the way they're conducting the rest of their lives. And the great news is there is much richer set of tools to enable you to do just that, and to do that in a way that makes sense financially for your organization, but most importantly is going to deliver an experience that really moves your brand and your relationship with your customers ahead. So it's just awareness. Know that there is more available to you today than there ever has been, and work with partners. Feel free to work with Nuance. We have a business consulting team that's happy to work with you. I'm happy to answer your questions. But don't sell your IVR short. Make sure that it is really performing according to what it can.
Thank you. Amy, you know what? Go ahead to that next slide that has that information on it also. There we go. And we'll leave that up just for a minute or so you can take that Customer Experience Experts at nuance.com. Again, there were great questions. We're sorry we're not able to get them to you. We will ship those off to Amy as soon as the session ends and she can respond to you. And the recording and the slide deck will be available in about 24 hours, and we will send that to you.